What is up, everybody? You know, I always start this show off by showing love to those companies who help make this podcast possible. Yes, you know who it is. I talk about them every week, and you're going to deal with it because I love them. They are amazing, and I love what they do for the industry. My friends over at BLUON. Guys, I know it gets repetitive. You probably get sick of me hearing it, but the sad part is there's so many people out there that don't understand the power of BLUON and how it can help you. I say it every week. I get it. Everybody has different tools. They have different needs, and BLUON can provide a need to each individual person. And maybe it is with the manuals. Maybe it is with the tech support. Maybe it's making them more efficient, is ordering their parts online and having them delivered to them. Whatever it is, BLUON is there to help you. If it's only to be on the BLUON app and be a part of that community, it's one of the few places where you can go on there and have people that are legit trying to help you answer questions, just talk. It's 150,000 plus HVAC technicians that are there to help answer questions in a positive atmosphere. And let's be honest, it's not always like that on all social media platforms. So this is what I mean when I tell you that BLUON has something for everybody. And some of you may need it or need to use it more than others, but everybody's going to need it at some point. So I highly recommend you check out my friends over at BLUON and remember upgrading the HVAC industry. Guys, next is my friends over at Yellow Jacket. Guys, I always tell you, I will never tell you to go out and buy something. Would never do that. It's your money. I wouldn't do it. But I have trusted Yellow Jacket for years, being a second-generation tech. My dad always did it, and I absolutely love Yellow Jacket, and I love everything that they stand for. They're a company where their products are made right here in the United States of America, which says a lot. Especially with inflation, companies are trying to find cheaper ways to make products so that they can make their profit margins. Well, guess what? Yellow Jacket's not doing that. All their stuff is made right here. And I know that sometimes they're not the flashiest company. Their digital screen, oh man, it's not color. Well, guess what? Who gives a shit? It gives you the information that you need to do the job that you're trying to do. This combustion analyzer right here, it doesn't break the bank, but it's going to give you all the information that you need to diagnose a heat exchanger. If something's going on in the flue pipe, whatever it is, it's going to give you the information that you need. This wireless dual port manometer, you can check your static pressure with it. It gives you that kind of stuff. Checking gas pressure, checking pressure switches on furnaces going into heating season. It's going to give you what you need when you need it. And then last but not least, over here, this turbo recovery machine. This thing is amazing. We have one of these at the shop that we use, and the guys love it. Absolutely love it. And all of their things are built to last. Every time I've ever used Yellow Jacket, when I pulled it off the van and I went to use it, it did exactly what it was intended to do. And to me, that's half the battle. So guys, if you're looking to spend some of that hard-earned summer money you just made, replacing some of your tools, maybe getting some new things for the first time, all I ask is give Yellow Jacket a look. If you decide to go with another brand, hey, that's your choice. It's your money. Just give them a look. And last but not least, I always say, if you buy a new manifold, if you don't choose Yellow Jacket, that's fine, but you should at least have Yellow Jacket hoses hooked up to it because they are the best in the business, hands down. That's not even open for discussion. All right, so remember, 70 years of expertise built into every tool. Let's get on to the show. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless the United States, and thank you to all those men and women who defend it.
Welcome to to the #1 rated HVAC podcast. If you're looking to grow in the HVAC industry, then you're in the right spot. Blue-collar people talking about blue-collar shit. Let's get better together. So turn up the volume, buckle your seatbelt, and let's welcome your host, Gil Cavey Jr.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the HVAC Uncensored Podcast. I am your host, Gil Cavey Jr. Here we are, another hump day, another Wednesday, and another amazing show for you guys. Sorry I hit the wrong button, so you saw a sneak peek of the guest. But hope everybody is doing amazing. To say hello to some of the people in the chat real fast. My good buddy, Mr. HVAC Rookie, thank you for being here, brother. I know you're still working. Mr. Jason Johnson, Brian Sanders, and Comfort Medic Home Services. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Tonight is a good show, man. And we've been doing a lot of different things when it comes to business and talking about business. And this is a little bit of everything from every perspective. But just so you guys know that some of the future episodes, we're getting back into more technical stuff. I know that's what you guys love. I just want you to understand the point behind some of these. Plus, it's just good conversation as well. And I've been truly looking forward for tonight for several reasons. My guest tonight is a host of his own podcast that we're going to get into. That is something else. I think it's neat that you guys would find interesting to check that out. But I'll let him say for itself. Let him say it for himself. So, guys, let's get into this. I have my guest. It is Mr. Stephen Semple. He is the creator and co-host of the Empire Builders podcast. Marketing guy, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different things tonight. So let's welcome Mr. Stephen.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me here. This will be fun.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was getting a little button heavy, pressing the wrong buttons over there, and I saw you popped up drinking water. I was like, oh, man. But, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I know you're, up there in Canada. So, well, are you, I'm in the East Coast, so what time zone would you be in where you are?
I'm in Eastern. I'm in the Eastern,
okay.
Same time zone.
Okay, so that works out.
So we're good that way. Yeah,
right,
we're good that way.
Good. Well, I guess, welcome to the show. Obviously, like I said, thank you for being here. I guess I like to always start off to let everybody know a little bit, let them know a little bit about you and who Stephen Semple is.
Yeah, so I'm a partner in a marketing agency, The Wizard of Ads, and we do a lot of work in the home services space, everything from heating and air conditioning to plumbing to landscapers. But we also do work in other industries. And I think that always brings a really interesting perspective. So for example, I have clients who are high-end jewelers. I have a client who, they sell private jets. I have people in the medical space. So it always gives you kind of a good perspective in terms of different ideas and different approaches. And as you said, I also have a podcast I do. It's a 20-minute podcast. Comes out once a week called the Empire Builders Podcast. And what we do that's kind of fun on that one is we take a look at businesses that are big today, but we go back to what did they do when they were little that created that breakout moment. I think for a lot of us who are in owner-operated businesses and smaller businesses, there's a lot you can learn from that. There's far more that you can learn from when that business was little than what it's doing today, now that it's $1 billion business. The real question is, how did it become that $1 billion business? And that's what we explore.
That's awesome. When you told me that, I love that idea. I'll have to check out some episodes. It's kind of funny because you would think that would be a long, in-depth story that you guys can cover that in 20 minutes. So it must be like straight to the meat and potatoes. There's no appetizer.
Yeah, we get into it pretty quickly, but the thing I've tried to do with it as much as possible is if there's 3 or 4 lessons, to me, that means we can just do multiple episodes on it. So there's usually what we're trying to do is look at one thing. There may be 20 things they did, but what's this one, and what is the impact that one thing had? And then again, as I said, if there's multiple things, we can go back and touch on it again. But what I'm trying to do is create something, that you can listen to when you're walking the dog or driving into work or something along that line. So it fits that nice 20-minute time frame.
Yeah, no, that's good. And some people, and let's be honest, I mean, that's why I could never do 20 minutes. My mouth is too big for that. But I've even tried to stay at an hour, because some used to be an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. And looking at analytics, I could tell that the 45 minute to an hour for me was kind of the best range to stay in. But short form content is where the world's going nowadays. It's, not saying long form video and stuff isn't good, but people like getting their information, getting it quick, and hopping on to the next thing. So that's actually, for audio wise, is really an amazing idea for you guys.
Yeah, well, and it's just, it was when I started it, that was the form that I challenged myself, and I said, can we figure out how to fit it into that format? And we're 120 some odd episodes in, and now we have some, like we've done some where there's interviews, and the interviews went really long, and so all I decided to do was break it into a couple episodes and make it multi-parters, so that you could still consume it in that period of time. But it's been a fun event. It's been a fun adventure, and it's a wild mix of businesses. It's all over the map. So there's always something of interest for people in it.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this: in breaking down all those different businesses, is there? I guess there could be a bunch, but what is the most common thing that you see all of them? Like, you notice yourself repeating that all these companies, that when they were small, they all did, something similar.
That's a great question. And I'm going to say it's a couple of things that seem to be reoccurring themes. And again, it's not going to be, if you went back and listened to all 120, it's not going to be all 120, but it's going to be the vast majority are going to fit this. And one is the genesis of the idea came from one of two places. Either it was a frustration that the founder felt themselves. In other words, this is something that drives me crazy and needs to be fixed. So it can be either that, or it's something that they saw in a different place, like could be a different geography or a different industry, and decided to bring that to their place. Like an example we were talking about early on was Starbucks. The genesis idea for Starbucks happened when Howard Schultz was sitting enjoying coffee in Italy, in a cafe in Italy. And if we go back 35 years ago, cafes didn't exist in North America. Espresso drinks didn't exist in North America. And he experienced that in Italy. And he went, you know what, this would be a great idea for the North American market. People thought, and in all of these cases, when these people started these ideas, everyone looks at them and said, "You're nuts. That's Italy. That won't work here. We're American. We drink a cup of Joe. That's that fancy Italian, latte that's not going to work." And overwhelmingly, the ideas all seem kind of a little nutty at the time.
Yeah.
Right? They all cut against the grain. They all seemed a little off. They were all things that, if you were following best practices or following industry norms, the industry would say, that's nuts, that's crazy. But all of them cut against.
I can't hear you, Stephen.
When did you lose me?
Oh, you just popped back up. You were fine there for a second, and then all of a sudden it just... You were going in and out there for a second.
Yeah, okay.
I can hear you.
All
now.
right, so you can hear me now? Okay. So how far do I got to wind it back?
So you said the difference about, going against the grain is what you have to do. I guess that was the last big point you made before you started to cut out.
Yeah, so these ideas that these businesses would have in the early stages, the industry would look at it and go, that's nuts. That's a crazy idea. And they had this bravery to cut against the grain and do this idea that everyone would look at and think is kind of a little bit nuts, a little bit crazy. But that is the thing that set them apart and started the building of their empire. across the board, across the board. The other common theme is they didn't rely on others to get the message out. So even if you were a business that was distributing, through a Costco or a Walmart or something along that lines, you still reached out to consumers directly. You still wanted to have that direct relationship with that consumer, because the person who owns the heart and mind of the consumer wins.
Yep.
So that's another important element that I would see with many of the businesses.
Well, one thing that we've learned, and especially came from the Wizards, was the difference between transactional and relational buyers. And you don't realize that. And obviously, those relational, you're gonna have those people that's just about price, just about money. But those relational people are the ones, especially me. I'm that guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, and I like building those relationships. And those customers are the ones that are gonna spend way more money with you more consistently than some person who's like, oh, I got a price for 10 grand. If you can't beat it, I'll call the next guy. So
Well, and especially when you look at the lifetime value of a customer, because when you get that type of customer who's relational, and if we really look into the psychology of the relational customer, the transactional customer fears overpaying, and the reason why I can say it's a fear is fears drive us to irrational behavior, and we all know the person who will drive across town and save 10 cents on gas and brag about it. Well, that's not rational. That's a fear of overpaying. Now, the relational customer, their fear is making the wrong choice. Nothing drives them nuts more than they put the air conditioning unit in and they suddenly realize, you know what? I made the wrong choice. And that drives them bonkers. But the lifetime value of that customer, when you treat them right and they believe in you and you treat them with respect, they will just keep coming. Like, there's no other choice in their world. They will just keep coming back to you, Gil. Oh, yeah. I got an issue on this, call Gil. I got this, call Gil. Like, they will be yours forever because they actually don't want to deal with somebody else. It hurts them if they have to deal with somebody else. So the lifetime, not only is the value in that first transaction good with them because they tend to be better margin, the lifetime value is huge because you treat them right, they just keep coming back.
Yeah, and I love to deal with those customers because I like to I want to help people. Obviously, I help people using HVAC, heating and air conditioning, as that vessel. And being able to meet people and as a tech, when people request you and you go out and, now you go and you're like, oh man, that's little Susie. I can't believe she's 15 now. It's you're building relationships, and I love that. I get it. Not everybody is, an extrovert like I am, but I love that. And is just as much as fixing the HVAC equipment, I love meeting people and hearing their stories. So that's why I think like those kind of customers were amazing.
Well, and even if you're introverted, the other part that when you establish the relationship with that type of customer, they come to respect your advice. So when you establish that trust with that type of person and this is what they need to do to get the result that they're looking for, they don't fight you on it. They go, okay, all right, if that's what I need to do, I need to. And let's face it, as professionals, and you guys are professionals, as professionals, there's a nice satisfaction in that when somebody takes your advice, follows your advice, has a great experience because of that advice, and they call you back years later and they're happy to see you come and walking through the door. I don't care who you are, that feels good.
Yeah. It makes it easier to do what you have to do, especially sometimes when you have to work those long hours and you're seeing other people's families more than you're seeing your own. And it definitely makes a huge difference. So the other thing I love, something that you've been big on, I know you said you spoke on this topic, is the role of entertainment in advertising. I'm curious for you to touch on that because that seems like me.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you think about one of the big challenges that we have when you think about advertising is standing out is a huge challenge. If you live in an urban, and I forget who it is who did the study, but there was a study done a number of years ago that basically said that if you were in North America and you lived in an urban environment, you would get exposed to 3,000 to 5,000 messages a day, right? That's how many messages. And Harvard did a study on this, and what they found is of those messages, only a handful would be remembered the next day. So there's all of this noise that you've got to stand out in, and it's challenging. That's a massively big number, and so the first thing you need to do is stand out. So entertainment plays a really big role in that, especially if you're wanting to build those long-term relationships, because trust doesn't happen overnight. Trust is developed over time, and if a person wakes up today and their HVAC system is fine, they don't care about you, right? They don't care about you. They don't care about their product. What they care about is picking the kids up from school, getting them home, getting them fed, and getting them to soccer. That's what they care about.
Yep.
So an offer, a feature and benefit, a USP, any of those things don't matter to them. But you deliver an ad, a mailer, a radio ad, television ad, whatever it is, with some entertainment, you get their attention. Now that you've got their attention, you can start to build those emotional bonds with that customer. So entertaining ads are fun and all these other things, but they're also highly strategic, because that's what allows me to speak to somebody for long periods of time before they need your service. And then the day they need their service, they're like, hey, I've already decided I like these guys.
Top
I'm
of
gonna
mind.
give them a
That's what we
try.
always say. You're top of mind when something
Absolutely.
happens.
Yeah, and if you've done it right, emotionally, they've already decided that they like you.
Yeah.
Something about your message, they've already created those weird emotional bonds. And hey, we are deeply flawed as human beings in terms of how we make decisions. We'd love to think that we're all very rational, but we're highly emotional in terms of how we decide the things that we decide.
Yeah, no, that's very, very, very true. And it's, and knowing the difference, because everybody thinks, especially in the trades, it's, I'm honest and we do good work and we'll show up on time. It's like blah, blah, blah. Like you're supposed to do that. Everybody says that.
Right.
That does not make you stand out from anybody else. And sometimes I feel like people try too hard and they go in the wrong direction. But I love this whole of like entertainment, like just being yourself and creating something that is enjoyable for the viewer, that may not have anything to do with even the trade that you're doing. I mean, the trade could be in there a little bit, but not like it's something totally different. I just think that's pretty neat.
Well, and here's the interesting thing, and you hit on some of these things. Like if let's use trust as an example. So if trust is really important, what you can't sit there and say is, hey, I'm the guy you can trust. Because look, the moment I have to say you can trust me, like you don't trust me. The moment I say, hey, I'm the fun guy at the party, guess what? I'm not the fun guy at the party, right?
Yeah.
So what we have to do is whatever that emotional thing we're doing, whether it's building trust or whether it's being seen as being fun people, we have to make the customer feel it. We can't tell them these things. We've got to make them feel that we're trustworthy and that we're lighthearted and we're all of those things. We've got to convey that in the ad in a manner in which they feel it and experience it and come to believe it without telling them. And to your point on some of these things, that are table stakes, it's kind of like saying, hey, Gil, I got this great car for you. Every time you get out and you turn the key, it's going to start. I guarantee it's going to start. And you're like, who cares? I expect it to start.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure I'm going to throw in 4 tires. It's going to have 4 tires. Like, oh, that's what? Like, I thought that was standard. I didn't think that was extra. So let me ask you this: is there an advertisement out like on mainstream TV that is an example of kind of what you mean? Not to put you on the spot. If not, not a big deal.
Well, that's interesting. What is something out that's mainstream? Well, one of the ones that I've always really liked, that I thought did a great job on the entertainment front is the Aflac commercials. The one with the duck.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider that had a strategic thing because they really struggled with, like, I think the full name of the company is the American Family Life Assurance Company. Like, what a terrible name. Like, even the acronym is not interesting until they came along with this idea of let's have this duck, especially with the voice that they did of just going Aflac, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's an engaging, entertaining idea. And when they did that, especially in the insurance space, people had not been doing anything like that. Like Geico now has their Lizard, and there's these other spokespeople for insurance, but Aflac was one of the first to go down that path and making a little bit of fun of themselves because they're kind of making fun of their own company name a little bit. So I think there's an example of one that's done it really well.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I would actually say the insurance industry as a whole, because Geico and then the farmer's insurance, where the guy goes and wrecks the
Oh,
car,
yes.
and you're like, oh man, that seems like it resonates with you, and you're like, oh, huh, even if as long as you're having an emotion, that's what I tell people. If something is meant to drive an emotion, you may hate it and be like, this is the dumbest commercial ever, but guess what? You remember it.
Right.
People are like, oh,
Well,
that stupid
yeah, and
Gutco
another
commercial, but you can recite it. I'm sorry.
right. Yeah, well, and another great example when you think about it in the technology space, who've consistently done things where they've tapped into emotional feelings is Apple computers, right?
Yeah.
Their ads are continually about transformation and enjoy. Like, it's never about here's the size of the hard drive or the speed of the computer or the quality or any of those things. It's almost always an emotional appeal.
Yeah. And with them, the branding, how it's so that Apple, it seems so simple yet so complex that it's nothing crazy. And even most of the big brands out there, their logo isn't some crazy thing. It's just how they message, they make you feel some kind of emotion, and their branding is just it's iconic now, but it's the simplicity of it is what makes it iconic, if that resonates or makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, like it's I don't know if you remember this ad, but to me, a couple of the great examples of Apple is the first ad that they ran when they launched the iPhone, and it was like literally it was a 60-second ad where 58 seconds of it were people going hello, answering different phones, and then there was a shot of the iPhone where it was like answer decline. And if you remember how complicated smartphones were at that time, it was like, oh my God, it's that easy to answer the phone. That's amazing. But it was like 57 seconds of hello, 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 right? And then just the Apple thing at the end. They were brilliant at just taking you on this journey.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and really that's what it's come down to. And I know Ryan, the owner of Beltway, which is the HVAC company that I work for, he loves the whole marketing, and then realizing, I guess when you think, it used to be when I would think the word marketing, it's just the stupid mailer, $59 tune-up, call me, I'm
Right.
the best, you want a new system, call me, don't call the other guy. But then when you really start to break it down, it's not what we thought. And marketing has changed. Well, it's changed for the people that are having legitimate success with it and not just being that broken record. Kind of like the guy who's still advertised in the phone book. Like, come on now,
Yeah, and you can even do like, and I'm not saying there isn't a place in marketing for putting price out there. Sometimes what we want to do is we want to put price out there for a different reason than competing. So I never like competing on price, but sometimes there's a place for price in your advertising. So for example, if you're doing things like, we see this a lot in the plumbing space, and you even see it in the HVAC space, saying here's the price of a tune-up. And what's important in that is not so much that you are the lowest price, but it tells the consumer what it costs. Because sometimes the problem is they make up a number in their head that is way higher than what it really is.
Yeah.
Like we do this a lot also with our jewelers, for example. So we will do what we call a feature item ad, where you'll have a jeweler that has like really fancy jewelry, and what you can run the risk of is having customers not realizing that they've also got awesome stuff for $300. And so what we'll do is we will advertise a $300 item. And it's full price. We're not discounting it or anything, but it plants a different strategic message in a customer's mind where they go, I didn't realize that they had things like that I can afford to buy for my significant other. So price sometimes deserves a place in marketing, if it's even just to convey that message that this is affordable, or we have things at this price point.
Yeah, no, that's all. Because yeah, you see some of those fancy jewelers, and it's like, oh well, I need to get a. Even if it's not you and you're recommending to somebody, it's like, oh well, all that place sells is high end stuff. It's a couple $1,000s and more, and something like that. It's like, well, no, man, I saw an ad. They had this nice engagement ring that was like $400.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes you realize, boy, they do have things in my price point. Or, having a tune-up price. I can afford to do that. I can afford to do that tune-up, because who knows what they're making up in their head in terms of what it costs, right?
Yeah, and especially for us too. Like one thing that we've tried to do at Beltway, especially with Ryan's leadership, is we, as the companies went on, we've tried to be the quality. We do really, really good work. We're not the cheapest, but we do have some things that are affordable. Like some people are like, oh, maybe, I know they do really good work, but I can't afford them right now. But then we put something out and it's like, oh, well, that's actually, like, hey, we have a $4.99 duct cleaning special. And they're like, oh, well, man, that's actually really, really affordable. And then once they get to use our service and then see it, then we have another opportunity to maybe, something else. They get a club membership or whatever it may be, to keep being a customer of ours.
Well, and that becomes especially powerful when you start looking at the lifetime value of a customer, right? In terms of if I attract the right type of customer with the right type of messaging, and I go out there and I do a really, really great job, I'm going to have that customer for a lot. They're going to come back again in the future, and I'm going to have them for a lot of years. And when you add up that lifetime value of that customer, it becomes really important. And this is something not for people to keep in mind. Like never discount. Like we've got three levers. If we're growing our business, we've got three levers that we can play around with. One is what we call our share of voice, which is how much are you heard versus your competitors, right? So the loudest person can naturally have a verbally the game the same way, the most market share. The next thing is, what's the impact of your messages? So the impact, a high impact message, a highly entertaining, highly emotional message multiplies your share of voice. But the experience you give customers is also really, really important. If you do a crappy job, marketing's not going to save you.
Very true.
Right? It's just going to accelerate the inevitable. So that great customer experience, let's not discount that. That is also really super important.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think also coming across and letting people know that, I'm trying to say this without sounding weird, but like it's like that money is not the only important thing. Like even though we try to be the really good, thorough, a little bit more expensive, we're still like if our techs know if they go out to somebody and it's legitimate, like if it's a single mom with 3 kids and she's struggling, it's like, hey, like Mrs. Smith, like she can't afford this repair. Call us, like we still have a heart. Hey, put me on the phone with Mrs. Smith. Hey, I heard that you're going through a rough time right now, and I totally understand. We want to help you out, help you get through this moment and get the heat back on. So we're only going to charge you this. Is that something you can do today? Oh my God, thank you so much. It just shows you have a heart. It's not just about that, money making thing. You're putting that emotions back into it.
Well, and we're going to be facing that. This is a really interesting point because I think we're going to be facing over the next little while some interesting challenges in the home services space. Interest rates are high, which let's face it, has made systems more expensive. Money is tight. People are nervous. I think what we are going to have is people are going to have a temptation or the need and even requirement right now, instead of replacing systems, to extend it. And we have to, while we all have got profitability and sales targets we're needing to hit, at the same time, we have to respect if that's what somebody needs to do, that's what they need to do. We need to help them out as best we can.
Yeah. I feel like, and I always say this, if you go out and you take care of people, you'll make money. If you go out and try to make money, you won't. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. The one doing the right thing and taking care of people will lead you to the money every time. Absolutely.
This is curious, going into the wizard side of it. I don't know if you can do this. Can you name some of the big companies that you've worked with? I know I saw one on your the ad, but I don't know if that's something you put out in the ether to everybody.
Well, probably the two best known Wizard of Ads customers in your space would be, and we're not working with them any longer because they sold, but is Gettle Air Conditioning. When Gettle came to us, they were struggling. And then they sold, what was it? I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, for like $500,000 to private equity. Morris Jenkins is another one that was very high profile. They became one of the largest independent heating and air conditioning companies in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they sold out to the Wrench Group. So those would be two of the highest profile ones in the HVAC space that we worked with for a long period of time.
Yeah, and what I think is amazing about you guys is it's not like you don't work. Maybe some of those companies end up becoming big companies, but you don't need some incredible size, and it can be a mom and pop shop and it's owner operator kind of stuff, not these.
Oh yeah.
The fact that that's the people you work with. So like Gettle now, after being sold to PE, they could no longer be a Wizards customer, correct?
Well, they could be, but they never choose to be. They typically have their own thing that they want to do. But our sweet spot is that $5 to $8 million, we'll call it $5 to $10 million owner operated business. That's our sweet spot. That's what we really like to work with. And there's a couple of reasons. There's probably three. One is it's satisfying because you're working with real people and you're having an impact in their lives, right? Like if you can help that person take that $5 million business and turn it into a $15, $20 million business, you're creating wealth for them, their family, their community. And that's exciting and that's fun because you're helping real everyday people. But the other part is our business model. We tie our revenues to the growth of the business. And it's far easier if you find somebody who's a great operator who's running a $5 million business. It's far easier to take that $5 million business and make it a $50 million business than to take a $50 million business to $500 million.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really our bread and butter. That's that's where we've started with most of our customers. Most of our customers start in that space. They're, $8 million businesses.
That's us. We're not 8, but we're, but we're in the range you're talking about. I
Yeah.
guess if you wouldn't mind, some of the people listening to this in what you do, I know it's marketing, but also if you could elaborate on, like branding, because in this industry, most guys, it's
Yeah.
they start their own company, and the first name they think of is it's Billy Bob's Heat and Air, not realizing how
Right.
impactful that name and that brand has to be down the future. And that's why you have so many people that have to rebrand, which isn't a bad thing, but just understanding branding.
Yeah. So it's funny. I actually did a podcast. It was an exception to the rule of talking about empires. I did one which was on branding versus brand. So the first thing I want to do is we throw around the word branding and brand all the time. And we all then also walk around with different definitions in our head of what it means. So the first thing I want to do is what's branding and what is brand? So, first of all, your brand is the sum total of all of how somebody feels about your business. So basically, everything you do impacts your brand. How you answer the phone, how you dress, how you greet the person, because all of those things impact emotionally how somebody feels about your business. Now, what branding is creating the anchor that pulls all that together, that helps with recall. So it's the visual identity, it's maybe words and slogans and jingles and things along those lines. But what they're doing is they're basically helping a person pull all those feelings that they have about a company together so that they remember it and recall it when they come across the name or the logo. They go, oh yeah, I remember those guys. Oh yeah, I like those guys. Oh, that's what these guys are all about. And the most interesting thing that I've had in my career is those situations where we've come across companies where our first gut reaction is we need to rebrand these guys. And sometimes the best thing to do is to accept that as a challenge. So here's my favorite example is Dave Young, who I do the podcast with. He has a company that he works with who's got, quite frankly, a terrible company name, BWS, for a heating and air conditioning business. It's a terrible name.
Yeah.
For a bunch of reasons, they didn't want to change the name. And they actually ended up creating these really entertaining commercials that and if you go to the podcast, so at the beginning of each one of my podcasts, we share an ad. And there's a bunch of BWS ads in it. But there's literally one ad that they did where, the name of the company is BWS. And B stands for, yes, and get out a piece of paper because we want you to write this down. B stands for the letter B. And W stands for the letter W. And S stands for the letter S. Oh, and our website is spelled the same way, BWS. And it's just ridiculous. But all of a sudden memorable.
Yeah.
And they'll do things like B stands for plumbing and W stands for the Winteries. And like they've just made complete fun of the name. And it totally worked.
Yeah, that's funny. It's just funny. We did an ad where Ryan was hitting me with a truck. Thank God he didn't actually do it, but people were laughing, and the blooper of the video was actually funny because thank God I think I said hell or damn it. I didn't curse. I have a bad mouth sometimes. But Ryan was like, "You can't say that," and everybody seemed to like the blooper part of it. But yeah, back to
That's funny.
like you said, entertaining people and hitting a core emotion that makes them remember that, and a name pops up. So when something happens, that you are top of mind.
Now, sometimes the challenge can be is if it's too common a name, where challenge can become is it can really mess you up when it comes to AdWords and organic search and branded keywords and things like that. So if you've got something like what town are you in, Gil?
We're right outside of Baltimore, Maryland.
Right. So if you were like Baltimore heating and air conditioning, that becomes really challenging because you can't create, it's really hard to create branded keywords around that because your keyword is Baltimore. And so if somebody is looking for your name and they type in Baltimore, you've got like, it's so hard to stand out in that.
Yeah, well, we're
And so
kind of already
sometime,
like that with Beltway, which is why I told
yeah,
you we've talked about the whole rebranding, which we haven't put out publicly, but for that reason, because we have to spend so much on marketing because we have to get around that, and there's so many other different companies, not even in the same industry. Some of them do offer the same services, but it makes them hard to get to the right ones. And what really kind
yeah,
of hit us in the gut is we had a compressor for a unit that didn't show up, and then some guy showed up with this box that looked like somebody beat the living daylights out of it. And he goes, "Hey, this is yours." And at first I was like, I'm not taking delivery of that. And then I realized what was happening. I was like, our item got sent to the wrong Beltway. How many
right,
customers go looking for us and find these guys?
yeah,
You know?
yeah. We ran into a similar challenge with a podiatrist that we work with who Milwaukee foot and ankle specialist. Now the fun thing is if you're in Wisconsin, they love shortening names, right? It's kind of a thing. So we ended up just taking the mill off of the name and calling them walkie feet to make it something different. And with that one, we had lots of fun. We've got I think we have almost 40 URLs. We basically came up with every way that we could think of for spelling walkie feet. And basically we have all of these URLs, pointing to the same place. So part of our campaign is spell it however you like. So it's walkie feet, spell it however you like. So it's but that we were facing that same problem. As soon as somebody typed in Milwaukee, it's you're competing with everything. It's hard to stand out in the world of Google.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, let me ask you this, and this may not be your forte, but some people are saying that Google is going to be a thing of the past in years to come. Like that. It's going to be going away.
Well, I don't know that they've got a lot of money. I don't know whether it's going to go away. But here's a couple of things we do know: is it is becoming every year it is becoming more and more expensive and less effective, right? Like we're all seeing that. So I don't see anything, and it's becoming also, given a lot of the changes that happen, it's also getting harder and harder to do really great targeting. And we also know that there's a lot of bots and bad clicks and all that other, and that's not going away. So that backdrop is there. But here's the one that becomes interesting is as AI develops, does search change? So instead of search being a Google style search where here's a bunch of companies come up, does it actually come up now with a recommendation? Does the AI start to make a recommendation? I don't know whether it's going to go there, because part of it is and how is Google going to monetize that becomes the question. But I think it's fair to say that change is coming, but we don't know what it's going to be like. Now, I don't worry about that too much, because ultimately, going back to one of the early things we were talking about, is the person who owns the customer relationship wins. I don't want Google between me and the customer. I want the customer typing in my URL directly, or doing an organic search that is my company name. I don't want them going plumbers near me or HVAC near me. I want them typing in, Beltway or Baby Bear, right? Maybe that's what they remember is maybe Baby Bear. But that's what I want them typing in, coming to, because then that means I have the relationship with them, and they're coming to me, and they're not really going through a traditional Google search. So even if those things change, if I build a marketing campaign that develops that relationship, you'll always be good.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Or if people remember your phone number and they don't need to search, um, that's even better. You get it with the vans and stuff like that. But just real fast, the second name you said, nobody knows about that yet. So,
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. It's
My
okay.
bad.
Yeah, nobody will realize. I don't want Ryan watching this, texting me like, "I'm gonna kick you in the face." But it's all good. We've already bought all the stuff, so nobody can steal it. But yeah, that's cool to know because AI is definitely going to take over. So I'm glad that you brought that up because just seeing it now when it comes to like video editing or podcast, I can pop a video in and this thing can just spit out, YouTube shorts, and I don't got to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Yeah, it's amazing.
seeing where technology is going to go. And then they also brought up where customers need to find you, where maybe it's going to be, I'm not going to say it so I don't get a bunch of people's device, but hey, blah, 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 find me the, best HVAC company near me or something. And
Oh,
she does it, you know, you know,
I
um,
could I could see that happening where they would base it upon some sort of big data, make the recommendation of 5 companies. Look, it's kind of like an AI version of Angie's, right? Or
yeah,
HomeSense, where it'll make a recommendation of a bunch. I could totally see that occurring, and I guess, but again, from my perspective, we're not worrying about it too much because what I want is that direct. I want that customer wanting you, thinking about you, already deciding that you're the one that they're trusting. And all I think is these changes are just going to make that all the more powerful, all the more necessary, and all the more important that you basically have got that relationship with that customer dialed in long before they need you.
no, that's true. So rather than them going searching willy nilly, we want them to be looking for us specifically. Like,
Correct.
yeah, no, yeah,
Correct.
that makes
Correct.
sense.
And,
Because I've always worried. Like I
and
had.
look,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say I had a customer one time. I was there where she went on her like her Amazon Alexa or something, and she said, "Hey, I need to book an appointment for the boys to get a haircut at so and so." Like eventually, like you're gonna be able to do that just through talking.
oh, absolutely. And how we structure our website, how we structure our ads, how we want to make sure that people search to find us. Sure, there's going to be adjustments along the way so that we end up being found inside that technology. But the person who's going to win that war is the one who's got the customer thinking about them, not doing a general search, saying, I want to find Gil. That's who I want to find. As long as that's the way they're thinking, we'll win those battles and win those wars and gain that market share.
No, that makes perfect sense. So let's say this. So we're getting down to the nitty gritty. So I won't keep it too far. We're at 9:15. So we're at an hour. I guess before we start to close this out, if God forbid somebody's just interested in the Wizards, where can they go? And then also if they want to check out the Empire Builders podcast, where can they go to check that out?
So there's a couple of different places that they can go. So they can also find out things just by going to my website, which is stephensemple.com. There's also the empirebuilderspodcast.com where they can find out about the podcast. And if they're wanting to learn more about the Wizard of Ads or even the Academy, so we have the school in Austin, they can go to wizardacademy.org or wizardofads.org. So there's a couple of different ones they can do. But at stephensemple.com, I have a lot of those links there.
Okay, cool. And some of the links, to be honest, I think I copied them, and they should be in the show notes of this episode right here. And then if you look at the audio when that comes out, I'll copy and paste it. It'll be the same show notes, so all that stuff will be included in there. Stephen, I thank you so much for coming on, man. I was looking forward to this, and it's when you have these conversations and start just talking about things, time flies. That's always the way it works.
It
It's like
does.
I feel
It
like an
does.
hour. I couldn't imagine doing 20 minutes. 20 minutes, I felt like I would have been like, stop, record, let's do another one so we can keep going. But I really appreciate you coming on. This has been an awesome conversation. It's been like how I said I evolved as a tech into a general manager. And it's funny, I used to, be dreaming about the new tool or a technical issue. And now one of the things that's stuck in my mind is marketing and, how to, brand and get across the customers and stuff like that. So this conversation was really awesome for me. I really, really enjoyed having that conversation with you.
I'm glad you found it. And look, I hope you took away a couple of tidbits that can help you and also others on their journey, because there's so many owner operated businesses in the home services space, the HVAC space, and they're really important to our they're really important to our economy. They create important jobs. They build wealth for people, and so it's really important that we do everything we can to help people in that space have success, because it means a lot, not only to them, but to the really the greater good as well.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. But all right, Steven, if you want to hang tight, I'm going to go ahead and start to close this out. But I want to thank you again so much for coming on. I really enjoyed talking with you, and we can stay in touch and definitely do this again sometime.
Awesome. I would love that. That would be great.
All right, thank you, Steven. I'm going to close this out real fast, boss. Oh, man. Hey, everybody. So thank you guys for watching through this. I know a bunch of you especially that are here live, are technicians, and you guys could give two shits about what happens in business, and I get it. And we have a lot more technical things coming, even a lot more video-based things that technical are coming that I'm in the process of building. But I love these conversations, man, and I hope that you guys know that, because as my career has evolved, I've kind of taken different ways, and I'll always be a technician at heart, and that's always going to be what this podcast is for. But I also like giving that business or that manager mindset sometimes to people, because you never know where some of you might be in a few years. Maybe you might be now the operations manager, the service manager, the general manager of a company as you move along in your career. And I want you to be able to draw back to some of these conversations like, oh man, I remember this, or I remember that. So I hope you guys enjoy them. We tried to tie as many of them as we possibly could into something, technician based, like we did with Ian, the HR guy, and, kind of like on your side and stuff like that. So just so you guys know, I appreciate you being here. Hope everybody had a great week so far. A lot of things coming up. All the AHR stuff is going. It's going to be right around the corner. If you guys saw the video, I haven't shared it yet. Everybody else was doing it, about getting your tickets to AHR, because that's going to be absolutely amazing. I hope to see everybody there that I can. As always, I'll be podcasting live from the event in Chicago, Chi-Town. But I think that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out, man. Remember, follow me on all the social media sites. I was dormant on social media for a good little bit. I'm starting to get back out there. Guys, I took a break, man. If you guys didn't see my Instagram video, we did a thing at church that was kind of like a digital cleanse, and that just got my mind brewing. And then my daughter said something to me that just kind of hit me in the core. So I tried to take a break for a little bit. Obviously, I've been doing the podcast, but it just made me try to reorganize my time so that, when I'm home and I'm able to be free, I want them to have as much of my time as possible, which I thought that I was doing a good job, but apparently I wasn't. And I preach that to all of you, that when you're home, be home and spend that time with your family or significant other or whoever it may be. And I want to practice what I preach, and I needed to get better at that. So I took a little break and I backed off a little bit. So now I think I've got those times kind of down, and try to get back to business, as we move forward. With that being said, make sure you go follow me and like all the social media sites. If you have not left a 5-star review on the podcast where you listen to the audio, please do so. If you don't think it's a 5-star rating, email me. Let me know what you think I can do to make the podcast better. I'm open to constructive criticism. Obviously, don't be an asshole, but if you legitimately say, hey, man, I wish you did this, or sometimes when I listen, I hear this, and if you could cut that out, I'm willing to take that, man. You guys are my customers, so let me know. You can email me at hvacuncensored@gmail.com, and I may have the other ones working here soon. I'm finally starting to figure those out. The one is info@hvacuncensored.com. I might have all those ones working. I also have some merch stuff coming that is going to be custom, and when it's gone, it's gone. I'm going to keep doing these special, like, limited drops because I am just buying the stuff myself for me and my family, and then I'm going to let whoever wants stuff buy what they want, and then when it's gone, we'll get some more down the road. That way I can control the quality, but as soon as I get that stuff, you guys will be the first to know. All right? With that being said, remember to be safe out there, all right? We all have somebody to make it home to. We want to make it home the same way we left, all right? Keep your head on a swivel when you're driving. It's crazy. We live in a crazy world. Make sure that breaker's turned off. I don't care if it's your best friend, your brother. Double check. Use your meter, all right? Don't be going grabbing something to make it where you don't make it home that night. Do the little things. Set yourself apart from the next guy or girl. Keep fighting to make yourself better. Don't get caught and be complacent in life. All right? There's no such thing as staying the same. You're either getting better or getting worse. That's just the sad reality of it. Keep bettering yourself. Keep learning. Even if it's not even HVAC related and there's something else, a hobby that you have, keep doing something to get better. Listen to a podcast, read a book, watch a video, take an online course, whatever it is, keep trying to be the best version of yourself. And with that being said, I love you, mofos. Have an amazing week. Make sure you check out some of the other amazing shows out there, like my buddy Reliable, who I think was last night. Misfits podcast, HVAC, Jennifer is in here. So make sure you check out that shows Overtime on Friday nights. So many amazing shows, people putting in the time for your amusement and to better you. So make sure you check them out. With that being said, I love you, and I'll talk to you next week. See you.
Thanks for listening to the HVAC Uncensored Podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram, or email us anytime at hvacuncensored@gmail.com. Now, get back to work. Shut this down. The views and opinions shared on the HVAC Uncensored Podcast may not necessarily be the views and opinions of our sponsors or guests.